Vienna, 1950. A city caught between the echoes of its grand past and the scars of a devastating war. The streets, once bustling with life and culture, now bore the weight of history and the burden of reconstruction. A city rebuilding, haunted by the ghosts of war. The remnants of bombed-out buildings stood as silent witnesses to the horrors that had unfolded. The people, resilient yet weary, tried to piece together their shattered lives. Into this world, Jack Unterweger was born. A child of the rubble, his first cries mingled with the echoes of a city in mourning. His birth, a flicker of new life amidst the ruins. His was a life shadowed from the start. The darkness of his surroundings seeped into his very being, casting long shadows over his formative years. Abandoned by his mother, raised in institutions. The cold walls of orphanages became his home, the faces of strangers his family. Each day, a struggle for affection, for identity. The seeds of violence, some would say, already sown. In the absence of love, anger took root. The toys he clutched were his only companions, the window his only escape. He drifted through childhood, a delinquent in the making. The streets of Vienna became his playground, and the shadows his friends. Each misstep, a cry for help that went unheard. Petty theft led to assault. What began as minor transgressions soon escalated. The thrill of the forbidden, a temporary balm for his wounded soul. The darkness within him stirring. His eyes, once filled with innocence, now burned with a fierce intensity. The alleyways of Vienna, his stage for acts of defiance. His teenage years were a blur of delinquency and crime. Each arrest, a mark of his growing notoriety. The system, a revolving door that failed to contain his burgeoning rage. He was in and out of juvenile detention. The bars of his cell, a temporary barrier to his escalating violence. Each stint, a lesson in survival, a deepening of his resentment. The system seemed unable to hold him. Judges and wardens, exasperated by his defiance, saw him as a lost cause. The courtroom, a theater of his rebellion. Or perhaps it merely fueled the rage building inside. Each sentence, a stoking of the fire within. His clenched fists, a testament to his unyielding anger. The world, he believed, had dealt him a bad hand. His anger, a shield against the pain of rejection. The troubled youth, now a young man, saw the world as his adversary, and he would make it pay. The dark alleys of Vienna, his chosen path. His menacing expression, a promise of the reckoning to come. Jack Unterweger, born into darkness, now embraced it fully. 1974. A year that would forever be etched in the annals of crime history. It marked the beginning of Jack Unterweger's descent into true depravity, a path that would leave a trail of horror and heartbreak. Margaret Schaefer, an 18-year-old German girl, became his first known victim. She was full of life, with dreams and aspirations, all cruelly cut short. Unterweger strangled her with her own bra, a method that would become his gruesome signature. The sheer brutality of the act was beyond comprehension. The crime scene left even the most seasoned investigators in a state of shock. They had seen many things, but this was different. This was pure evil. At just 24 years old, Unterweger had crossed a line from which there was no return. His face, captured in a mugshot, showed no remorse. He was swiftly arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison. The courtroom echoed with the finality of his fate, the clang of the prison cell door sealing his future. Behind bars, the reality of his actions seemed to hit him, or so it seemed. He began to write, filling pages with his thoughts, his rage, and his twisted justifications. He claimed remorse, writing of rehabilitation and a desire to change. But was it genuine? Or was it merely a calculated move by a cunning mind, seeking a way out? His writings gained attention, painting a picture of a man transformed. Yet, behind the words, there lurked a smile, a glint in his eyes that suggested otherwise. Was it all a facade, a masterful manipulation by a man who knew how to play the system? Prison became Unterweger's unlikely stage. His writing, raw and emotional, found an audience. Intellectuals and artists championed his work. They saw him as a symbol of redemption, a man reformed through the power of literature. He played the part perfectly. the charming, sensitive writer pouring his soul onto the page. His autobiography, Purgatory, became a bestseller. Awards and accolades followed. He was interviewed on television, his words captivating the nation. He had become the poster boy for rehabilitation. But behind the mask of the reformed convict, a darkness festered. The monster, biding its time. 1990. After serving 15 years of his life sentence, Jack Unterweger tasted freedom. His case had become a cause célèbre. Writers, politicians, and even some prison officials lobbied for his release. They believed in his transformation. They argued he posed no further threat to society. How wrong they were. His release was met with fanfare. He was a literary star, invited to talk shows, interviewed for prestigious newspapers. He reveled in the attention, the power he wielded. But beneath the surface, the darkness lurked, waiting for the opportune moment to re-emerge. Section 5. The Monster Unleashed. Freedom, it seemed, had awakened the beast within Unterweger. He began to travel again. Austria, Czechoslovakia, Los Angeles. And wherever he went, death inevitably followed. Prostitutes, often left in wooded areas, strangled with their own undergarments. A chilling echo of his first crime. The killing spree spanned continents. 11 victims, their lives brutally extinguished. The police were baffled. The murders, though similar in MO, had no apparent connection. They had no idea the charming writer they saw on television was the monster they hunted. Section 6. A trail of terror across continents. Unterweger's modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He sought out vulnerable women, lured them with the promise of money or work. He played the role of the charming gentleman. Then he would strike. His victims, often sex workers living on the margins of society, became his prey. His crimes were brutal, fueled by rage and a twisted sense of power. He seemed to relish the act of domination, of control. Each murder, a performance of his dark desires. He left a trail of terror and heartbreak across 2 continents. Section 7. The Silken Snare. How did he get away with it for so long? The answer lies in Unterweger's cunning and the mask he wore so well. He used his celebrity status as a shield. Who would suspect a celebrated writer? He was a master manipulator, charming his way into the lives of his victims and out of the suspicions of authorities. He was a chameleon, blending into different worlds with ease. The respected journalist, the charming socialite, the monster hiding in plain sight. His double life continued, fueled by arrogance and the belief that he was too clever to be caught. Section 8. Justice, delayed, and denied. It was only a matter of time before the walls would close in. Police in Vienna began to connect the dots. The similarities in the murders were too striking to ignore, and the last known location of several victims pointed to one man, Jack Unterweger, the celebrated writer, the reformed killer. He was finally apprehended in Miami, Florida, with the help of the FBI. The evidence against him was overwhelming. DNA, fiber analysis, eyewitness accounts. But Unterweger maintained his innocence, claiming he was a victim of his own fame. The trial was a media sensation. Section 9. The Final Act. Suicide in a Cage. 1994. The courtroom was packed. The air was thick with anticipation and tension, as everyone present knew they were about to witness the conclusion of a saga that had gripped the nation. The world watched as the jury delivered its verdict, guilty. The silence that followed was deafening, a collective intake of breath as the weight of the decision settled over the room. Unterweger, the man who had fooled so many, was unmasked. His facade shattered, revealing the true nature of the man behind the mask. The courtroom buzzed with whispers and gasps as the reality of his crimes became undeniable. Sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom, a final, irrevocable judgment. The spectators watched, some with satisfaction, others with a sense of disbelief. This time, there would be no escape, no second chance. The clang of the prison cell door closing was a stark reminder of the finality of his fate. That same night, in his cell, Unterweger took his own life. Alone in the darkness, he faced the reality of his situation, the walls closing in on him. He used the drawstring from his sweatpants, fashioned into a noose. A simple, yet tragic tool, it became the instrument of his final act. A final act of defiance. In his last moments, he sought to reclaim some semblance of control, to make a statement that would resonate beyond the bars of his cell. Or perhaps, a desperate attempt to control the narrative one last time. His mind must have raced with thoughts, memories, and regrets as he contemplated his final decision. His death, a gruesome footnote in a story that shocked the world. The discovery of his body the next morning sent ripples through the prison and beyond, a stark reminder of the darkness that had consumed him. Section 10. The glare of the spotlight. The case of Jack Unterweger is a chilling reminder of the seductive power of media and the ease with which we can be deceived. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own fascination with true crime and our willingness to believe in redemption. Could it happen again? Could a charming psychopath once again manipulate our thirst for sensationalism? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. As long as we remain captivated by the macabre, the possibility will always exist. The spotlight, ever searching for its next tragic star.